I took a step back and was like, what would it look like if we could make money while we do what we love? What if I could start turning my backyard garden in a little tiny home out here in urban San Diego into an extra income stream?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Quiz Marketing Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Cam Perdido is the founder and CEO at Digital Garden Girl. It's a super cool brand with a super cool quiz. I found it and then I reached out to Cam because I was like, can we talk about how you made that quiz? I think it's an awesome use case. So thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh.
Well, let's jump right into it because I am curious. So your quiz is for people who want to start gardening businesses. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, it's a nice blend of two worlds.
Which is fascinating. I mean, I know it's certainly a trend. I have a sister who is really into gardening and I think it's awesome. But I'm curious, if we zoom back, how did you get into this industry in the first place?
Yeah, so I always like to say that I am a teacher by trade and a gardener by heart. I spent years in high school classrooms, teaching special education, teaching English. And, after COVID, there was a huge wall that was hit and I got burnt out. And honestly, my husband was like, girl, you need to go get a hobby. Like, I can't be doing all of this. Out of the blue, I picked gardening and I fell in love with it. And as I started to, literally get my hands in the dirt, I took a step back and was like, what would it look like if we could make money while we do what we love? What if I could start turning my backyard garden in a little tiny home out here in urban San Diego into an extra income stream? And so I started leveraging skills like digital marketing, online marketing, affiliate marketing, whatever marketing we want to call it today. And before I knew it, I built this brand. And I like to think of myself now as an online marketing and brand strategist that's really just in the business of helping people grow, whether that's their own garden business, their own garden brand, or if it's just trying to find ways to make purposeful income to prevent burnout and do the things that we love. So that's a little bit of how I got to this place right here.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's a really powerful story, but also it's not uncommon, but also not everybody goes that path, right? A lot of people would just fall into the burnout trap and then be like, I have no other option. So that's great. I think this is really inspiring to anybody that's listening that is feeling like that, which I think is kind of a lot of people right now, given
Too
how the
many
labor
of
market's
us.
been and the economy.
Exactly.
And it's probably an always thing, but I think probably particularly given the series of events over the last few years, it's just so much turmoil. A lot of people are in that place. So you kind of brushed over it, and I don't want people to feel like this is all easy. How did you go from okay, hobby is really fascinating. I really like you said, fell in love with gardening. How did you go from there to now I'm teaching other people how to build a gardening business or build any sort of business that feels fulfilling?
Yeah. So when it comes to gardening, there are some people out there that just want to do it as a hobby, right? And it's like their center of peace, it's like their joy, and that's amazing. For me, I also found it as a way to not only relax and rejuvenate, but I could also leverage a lot of these other soft skills that I was using in my day-to-day job, right? Like, how do we build connection? How do we communicate with people in a way that we know that they just get us, right? And so then that's when I was like, wait, that's branding. Wait, that's copywriting. Wait, when you go down the rabbit hole of how to make passive income, there are so many ways. And I started looking into the business side of gardening and realized that it's like $1 billion industry. And so $1 million industry. And so is online marketing. So I was like, I don't see anybody else right now blending the two worlds. So let's just do it. no ducks in a row here with that one, but it turns out it's doing okay.
That well, it's like I think that's so important though because there are a million like generic online marketers, and unless you already have a lot of established stuff there, I think it's super hard to break through unless you have something that's unique. But it's also kind of like a two sides of the same coin, right? Where it's like it's kind of more difficult to be unique because I don't know if you experienced this. Well, I guess that's my next question. Like, did you experience this where people are like, what are you talking about? Why would I trust somebody that's like talking about gardening with my marketing?
Yeah, I think I'm like there's two sides of trying to make it in the online marketing space, and you have these people who are very like general, and they just want everybody to make passive income and do these things. And for me, I was kind of like, if I'm going to do something outside of my 9 to 5 job, it's going to be rooted in the thing I love to do. And it's going to be very industry specific. And it's going, for me, like the niche piece of gardening was like a no brainer because why would I do anything else than what I love to do?
Yeah, I mean that checks out. It checks out. So let's dive into more like the specifics here. So I'm curious how you decided to do a quiz, but I'm also curious like how did you have the information that you needed for that quiz to know like the questions that you have in there where you're asking people about their marketing and their businesses, and everyone should go take the quiz. I'll put it in the show notes, but it's very particular and you can tell that there's a deep knowledge of the audience, of the customer. Where did you acquire all that knowledge, and then how did you decide that you wanted to put that into a quiz?
Yeah, loaded question. Love that question. So, I guess for me first was looking at here, wait, let me take a step. So, for my business Digital Garden Girl, I mainly have two types of people, and I like to start people first. I have those hobby gardeners who are multi passionate and have a lot of strengths, but they're also looking for a way to make purposeful income, right? And then I also have this other side of the audience who are already garden creators and influencers, and they partner with brands and they do all that stuff, but they're not effectively monetizing their skills yet. So they're creating content and they're in this like content hamster wheel. And they're like, okay, I'm on Instagram. Okay, I'm on TikTok. Now what do I do with it? And so for me, it was really number one, understanding who the heck I was talking to. Like, that was the first step. And then when I went into my quiz creation, I kind of like thought of it as like an invitation to my virtual garden party, right? Like this was the way to get both of these groups of people to take their seat at the table and build a community and learn together on growing our garden businesses in this digital online landscape, right? And when you ask like how did I like even think about quizzes, how did I get in, like why did I even consider it in the first place, I was looking around in other industries and other brands that I'm honestly kind of using in my everyday life anyway. Anything from like learning my like brand voice style to like a coffee subscription that I use, like e-commerce and other creators and business owners are already using quizzes to help get me the results that I want in my daily life. So why wouldn't I be using that for my own small business and for in service of my own community? And then you
I
also
like
asked the
that phrasing.
question, yeah,
Well, so I was just gonna, because I like that phrasing, like help me get what I want in my daily life. I think that's a really good way of phrasing it because the quiz can often have this weird connotation, whether it's like BuzzFeed or, some dumb quiz that you took about Hogwarts. Like that's what people think of, but it's really like a way of helping people, which kind of goes back to, yeah, the second part of that question, which is like this deep knowledge that you have of like what people need. I feel like that doesn't just come from nowhere, right? Like you're not going to just know that off the bat. So what's your process, or how did you go about like understanding what those two groups of people really need at like a deeper level, not just like, oh, I need more money, because it's like the cop out answer. It's like, what
Well,
do you actually
also
need?
everyone needs more money.
Yeah, also that it's not wrong.
Yeah, so before I even started making my quiz, I was creating content and creating digital products already for my community. So that was kind of like my free testing ground to see like who's showing up, who like even wants to eat at the table, how can we break bread together, right? And I started like kind of like reading in between the lines of like what are the things that people are constantly like liking and engaging with, and what are the questions that they keep asking me time and time again. Like if I get another DM about how to grow on Instagram, I might scream. Sorry for anybody who always asks me those questions. But for me, like a quiz was like kind of the entry point, right? Like we live in a world where there are bajillions of forgettable freebies, and freebies are like a one-way street, really. Like I spent you would any creator would spend an hour, a few hours creating like a PDF download, and then somebody downloads it, they get it, they might not ever look at it again. Probably not. Whereas like a quiz, when we were talking about like everyday solutions to problems we're having or think we're having, it builds a little bit more trust and like credibility, because you know the right after the quiz, based on quiz results, like can this person actually help me or not? And so when I was building out those quiz questions, I made sure, for context, my quiz is a personality quiz. So I made sure that the quiz results were not only a good analysis of like your personality type, but also it gives you like the digital product ideas that you might want cater to your strengths. So all of that is from a quiz.
That's perfect. I mean, I really appreciate that you said you're answering the questions that people ask you all the time through DMs, because I cannot stress that enough when I'm talking to customers. Is like the quiz is not some sort of random thing that lives out in the ether. Just answer the questions that people already ask you, and that's what they want. Like that's you gotta help people get what they want. And then the tie-ins at the end, that's also so perfect, because like it's crazy how engaged people are once they get to those results. Like they'll listen to almost anything you say, which like you have to be careful with that, because like, it's a lot of power. But
Well, that just
if you
reminded me too. Like, I'll just say this for like when I'm making content for Instagram, because that's my primary social media, somebody's going to look at my post for like 4 seconds, 7 seconds. People are going to look at my quiz page on my website on a domain that I own and have full control over for multiple minutes. So like just thinking about like that like attention span growing so you get more buy-in from your community, like that's one of the biggest benefits for me that I've seen from a quiz.
Yeah, and you also said the word forgettable, which that's a word that we've been starting to utilize, like unforgettable. Like the quiz is an unforgettable experience, and like you said, like multiple minutes, it's a memorable experience. It's something that you remember actually engaging with. And even if you don't necessarily remember like the brand right away, you can easily go and find it again and be like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like that was an interesting thing versus yeah, downloading something or getting on an email list where right off the bat where you might not read any of that content, and then what's the point of all that work and all that money and effort? Like it's so effortful to get somebody to do anything on the internet
I
now.
but
It's
yeah.
like all that effort goes to waste if they just download a PDF that sits in their downloads until they delete their downloads and then it's gone. It's
Mhm.
crazy. It's crazy. In terms of, since you do work with a lot of kind of more newer folks, I'm curious. So this is like kind of a tripping point that we run into a lot at Interact, is like when somebody is trying to get established, they're trying to get that initial kind of snowball rolling. how did that work for you? And then what do you tell people that are in that early stage now? Because the frustration that I feel, you probably feel the same thing, is like everybody wants to just go straight to like, I want passive income. I want everyone to buy my $17 product. And it's like, yeah, but what are you doing? Like, how are you helping people? And they're like, I don't know. I just want the money. And you're like, so frustrating. So how did that work for you? And then like, what advice do you have for folks that are in those beginning stages?
Yeah, for me, like I think there's two like main challenges and hurdles that mental hurdles that people have to overcome before they like really feel confident in this game of running your own business, being a solo entrepreneur, whatever that looks like for you, right? And the first one is like feeling confident that you can do it. Cuz I think when a lot of people start in this arena, they do want the passive income, like you said, and they don't understand how like a freebie or a quiz like fits into that business and brand ecosystem for them, right? And so something I tell my clients and my students is we are playing the long game. If we are really in the pursuit of like growing a business the way we grow our gardens, we're planting one seed at a time, and we're going to do it like succession planting if you're a gardener, but it's like seed after seed after seed after seed. Like you're not going to plant one seed and expect like a big old grocery basket. Like that's not how the game works. And I think something that works for me is because my audience already kind of like they implicitly have that background knowledge, right? They know like things take time to nurture. And something I also learned from my quiz results is that people based on their personality type in the quiz is my community is mainly filled with like dominance personality types and influence personality types, meaning we like to set big goals and we like to be people first. So for me, what that looks like in terms of like overcoming those hurdles, it's knowing like as a teacher and as a business owner, I'm coaching these people through some of those blocks that they might be experiencing. So they might want like the sexy instant gratification of passive income, right? But they are also going to experience some blocks with like figuring out messaging for their brand, figuring out the
Mm,
words they put in a quiz or in a digital product. Because they might be big dreamers or they might be so people focused, they don't know the behind the scenes. So I know my role is to like paint that picture for them and then fill in those little baby steps. And then all you gotta do is like follow the path, follow the track
mm,
so you can dream big.
that's awesome. Um, we'll definitely clip out that part and post that because everyone needs to listen to that. Especially the part about growing a garden. And it's funny, like I've been in audiences where someone tries to make a gardening analogy and you just see the crowd with blank stares or like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because it's shocking how few people know how gardening works. I'm from the Central Valley, so like there's all gardening there.
Mhm.
And so I totally get this. I'm like, yeah, of course, like you plant seeds and like 1 out of 10 even sprouts. Like and then people go on Instagram, they're like, "Wait, why didn't my first reel go viral?" And it's like, no, follow the gardening analogy. It's like not that complicated. So that's great. I think everybody needs to hear that. And getting back to the whole like slow growth, it takes time, it takes progress. And there's so many other gardening analogies that I love there too, where it's like there's a seasons, like what worked for you before might not work now. You gotta like do crop rotation. Like you can't always just plant the same thing and expect it to do well over and over again. And that's like so important with all of that. And then also what you said about laying out the steps so someone can just follow it. I agree that like there are steps you can follow. And I think that I don't know, I feel like people get caught up in thinking that like they have to be completely unique with every step that goes along or else it's not going to work. And it's like, well, not really. Like, if we switch over to basketball or sports analogies, it's like, do you think those people are doing different drills? Like, no, they're all doing the same drills. They're just
Exactly.
doing it more consistently. And That's honestly just great advice for anybody that's listening. Um, if we flip over to the other side of the audience, like the folks that are already established and like they're scaling, I would imagine they face a totally different set of challenges. So like, what are you seeing there that people are running into as roadblocks? And then like, what are the common things that you have to help people with once they've already got a brand established and like now they're looking to, I don't know, what are they looking to do? I guess that's a question. Like, do they all want to grow it really big? Do they want to just keep it the same? So, what are their goals, and then how are you helping them reach those goals?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for people who are already established or have that clear like brand identity already is the burnout piece, really. Because people, kind of what you were saying too earlier about like being unique and always like or creating new ideas that like feel fresh, right? Like I think that's like the weird entanglement that people like come to when they like start creating or start their own business and they're like, what can I do that's new? And it's like, you just got to keep kind of doing what you're doing. And for me, the thing that I recommend to my clients and to my students is number one, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's work simpler and smarter and like repurpose the content that we already have. Because a lot of the times people want to create a brand new product or create a whole new social media campaign. And it's like you already have a year to 5 years of content that's established. How can we take one idea and stretch it as far as you go because you know it already works? And for me, that's like looking into the business ecosystem a little bit and making sure that everything that we do goes towards the goal that we have for our business. So for somebody who is established, maybe they have like 20K followers on Instagram, right? And they make like 5K a month from affiliate partnerships and brand deals. A lot of the times people just kind of want to, like when they grow, they want to 2x their goal. They're like, how can I go from 5K a month to 10K a month? And the way I like to frame it is like, what if we X our goal? What would it look like as a creator if you not only, if you weren't trying to make 5K a month, but like 50K? What would you do differently? And when you pinpoint those skills that you like want to focus on, you're not going to be wasting your time on creating like 40 different lead magnets that aren't going to get you anywhere. You're going to double down on the things that work for you, right? And put all your energy into that. So, using like that frame of mindset to like really grow not only like a business that like runs, but is also like rooted in like what works for you so you're not stretching yourself thin and like contributing to burnout.
Mm, that's so important because if you do try to do everything and everything is like not that good, like it's all kind of mediocre results, and then I think the trap, maybe I don't know if you agree with this, but I think the trap that happens a lot of times once you do start to get success is you feel like you should do everything in order to move the business forward, when in reality, like 3 out of the 50 things you're doing are actually driving results. And if you just focused on doing those well, you'd get further. But it feels like if I drop the other 47 plates, then everything's going to crash and my business is going to burn to the ground. Is that how people feel?
Yes. And honestly, like I think that's what a lot of like new entrepreneurs like feel anyway, because you kind of also have to figure out what works for you and your flow anyway. Because kind of going back to what we were saying earlier about like just follow the system. For me, like there's a system and all you gotta do is like tweak it a little bit to make it your own. Like I'm thinking about my quiz that I created with Interact. And like if you look at it, anyone who doesn't know anything about quizzes, they're gonna be like, wow, this is so cool and engaging and whatever. It's just a personality quiz. Like it's really not that crazy, but Like I set it up to have 3 segmenting questions. So I get a little bit of insight from my audience, and then the rest of it helps my audience get a result that's related to their personality. And then from a branding perspective, I shared a little bit about me with like board games and Pixar movies and whatnot, so people can get a taste of like the type of person I am. But like that's it. Like I'm not reinventing the wheel with quiz copy to like be extraordinarily different. I'm just doing what hundreds and thousands of other creators have already done in a personality quiz.
That's really, I mean, I think all this is super helpful advice, but that one in particular, I think trips up so many people. Like, you think that you got to do something that's revolutionary and groundbreaking, and none of this is. Like, you can go back thousands of years, literally, and see people talking about these same strategies of like build relationships and do this and do that. And it's like, wow, if you didn't see when that was written, you'd think it was now. And if you always have this mindset of like everything I do has to be the first time it's ever happened, then you just never get anything done. And I think the personality quiz is a great example where you see that all the time. Like people coming in thinking their quiz has to be the most unique thing in the world. But it's almost like if you use the framework or like what's already worked, then like you said, you can just dial it a little bit to be your specific take on it, add a few elements like the board games, like a few elements of personality and your unique approach instead of trying to start from like everything has to be unique. And then, like you said, you burn out by the time you get into like the third question because you're like, this is exhausting. I can't do this. If you treat your whole business like that, then, you know, game over. It's not going to work. So it's like, but so many people do. It's like so common. How do you help people kind of work through the fear of like, if I don't do all those other things? Because it's almost like, I love this analogy. It's like there's this analogy where everyone is standing on a shore and you have to swim out to an island. And the island is basically like the freedom where, you focus on a few things and things are going well. But you have to swim out so far from the shore that you can't see it anymore before you can see the island. So you have to kind
Mhm.
of leave behind your old habits. And the old habit being like trying to do everything because you think that's what you have to do. How do you help people work through that where like they're afraid that if I don't do everything in my business, if I don't do everything completely unique, then I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to get what I want. How does that work?
Yeah, for me, I just we might need to like redact this, but I like to just kiss it. Keep it simple, stupid. Like
Hmm.
we kiss it. And for me, we think of the end in mind. So what is like the ultimate transformation, the ultimate goal that you want? And what are like the 3 to 4 things that are actually going to get us there, right? And like if I put my teacher hat back on, I think a lot about like SMART goals and like these like very specific tangible things that need to get done. When you have a huge crazy goal like starting your business or scaling your business, people get so stuck in like the in between and like that ocean before you get to the freedom island or whatever the analogy is, right? And it's all a mindset shift to, for me, just like just double down on these things, on these 3 or 4 things that you need to get done. Like blinders, baby. Like we don't need to be looking at the rest of it. And when it does feel very isolating to swim to that island, like for me it's also that aspect of building community and doing it with like-minded people. Like you don't need every single person like in the scope of like the social media sphere to understand why you're swimming. You just need like 2 or 3 people to swim alongside you and you're going to feel a whole lot more confident to get there.
Yeah, that's like in a previous season of this podcast, I interviewed a bunch of coaches and people that had created businesses. That was the thing that every single one of them had. They were all successful. Every single one had a group that they worked with. or a group of peers to like keep them accountable, to gripe to when things weren't going right. And I think if I'm hearing what you're saying, like comparison is the word that comes to mind there. Like comparison will obliterate every bit of progress that you've ever made from the mental perspective, because there's always someone ahead, there's always someone behind, there's always somebody doing something that seems totally cool and unique. And if you're always looking for like the highlight reel of who's better and who's doing something more cool, you're gonna find it. But it's so debilitating, because then it's like,
Yeah, you're going to
well,
be really disappointed in yourself that way.
yeah, and that's a horrible way to start off your day. Like,
Yeah.
it's a horrible way to start off your day, being disappointed in yourself. It does not give you the confidence, circling back to like what you're saying, at the beginning of like the confidence. Like, it destroys your confidence to look at somebody that's achieved what you think you want to achieve, and it seems like it's all easy and their life's great every day, which is honestly just like a lot of people's daily habit. Go online, look at people that are better than me, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to do anything today. And yeah, I mean, the keep it simple stupid analogy, my coach reminds me of that all the time. And it's like, you know even 12 years into this, I still have to remember that, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of like, oh well, this person did this and this person did that, and then it's just
Yeah. And I
totally.
think like even established business owners feel that way, right? Like kind of what you're saying, like I constantly like look around the room to see how other people are like, you know, just sitting basking in the sunlight of their success. And sharing their wins, right? Because you do want that in a community. You want people to, you want to see what's possible for you. But then I also have to like dial in and like set intentional time to like do my own reflective work, right? Like the Cam I was a week ago is not the same Cam I am today talking to Josh on an Interact podcast. And the Cam I was a year ago is a completely drastically different person. So like for me, like I know this sounds so cheesy, but it's even like, how can we just do like this much better tomorrow? Like not like change the world big, but how can we get like this much closer to a goal, or what can we do differently tomorrow to like improve like this mindset shift, like how we talk to this customer shift, the content we created, like whatever that mini win needs to look like. So your frame of reference is yourself. So
Hmm.
like
Yeah, it's you against you. I think that's the only way you can ever win. Like, you can't win against everybody else at the same time. It has to just be you against you yesterday, or you last month, or you last year. And then you can, yeah, you can celebrate like the little wins, the little achievements, and it can feel really good. But if you're celebrating a little win and then you see someone on Instagram celebrating a big win, then you're like, oh well, my win is not that good. It's just it's not a good mindset to be in. So I think that's honestly
exactly.
so important for anyone listening to hear, is just like, that's what it is. And like, taking it from, two of us as founders talking about this, highly successful in our fields, like, that's still how it is. It doesn't change. And like, it doesn't change probably when you get way beyond this either. So if you don't deal with it now, it's not going to be better later, just
Yeah.
because you
Let's
have
fix the habit
more.
now, everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, and then when you do get there, it can actually be enjoyable, right? Versus like getting there and then you're like just stressed all the time because you're like, I got to keep this going, and that's what you're saying with the burnout. So that's super helpful advice, honestly, for whether you're early or you're already established. I think everyone should listen to this and really take it to heart, because I think it's that is the hard part of the business. Like, the strategy stuff is not that complicated. That's the hard part. For anybody that's listening and they're like, this sounds perfect. Like, how do I work with Cam? Where are like the options and the things that they can do to kind of go further?
Yeah, so first off, take my quiz if you want to learn your garden CEO type. But if you do want to work with me further, you can go to digitalgardengirl.com. And something I like to do with Digital Garden Girl is like you choose your own path. And you can either work with me one-on-one, and I help with business seed starters. So I help you refine your strategy. I also have a branding package, and we'll fine tune the language and the visuals and like make a brand that really feels authentically you. But then we also have a DIY route. So everything from courses to workshops to digital products. I'm launching a new course in 2025. I'm going to be called the Digital Garden Club. And it's kind of for like your starter gardener who is trying to dabble, get their hands dirty, and figure out how to start growing their garden passion into an online business. So all of that can be found on digitalgardengirl.com.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that advice and wisdom with us. I'm serious. If you're out there, listen to this probably twice because this is the stuff that does trip people up a lot. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you for having me.